When a modern pianist strikes a key, they trigger a violent physical event. A compacted felt hammer launches into a steel string with immense force. But in the early 1800s, the instrument absorbing that impact was vastly more fragile. Forte pianos of the era relied almost entirely on wooden construction. These instruments belonged to private, enclosed spaces. They produced a delicate, silvery tone, suited to the quiet acoustics of an opulent salon. Mechanically, an early 19th century forte piano was a hollow wooden box, kept under extreme atmospheric pressure by the strings stretched across its frame. This created a mechanical ceiling, just as musical tastes began to shift. Symphonies were growing larger and louder, and solo composers needed more volume to reach the back of expanding concert venues. Generating that volume requires moving more air, which meant pianos needed significantly thicker internal strings. But pulling a thicker wire tight enough to reach the correct musical pitch requires a massive increase in mechanical tension. Looking at this model of a wooden piano frame, the structural limit is clear. Wood bends. Apply enough tension to the strings, and the internal bracing begins to buckle and collapse. That structural failure point was reached at roughly 2,000 pounds of pressure. Because of these physical limits, an exploding or splintering piano was a genuine occupational hazard for 1820s virtuosos pushing for more volume. The expansion of the piano repertoire was physically restricted by the properties of timbre. Composers were writing music that the existing engineering simply could not sustain. The solution arrived from the heavy foundries of the Industrial Revolution, the cast iron frame. First patented by Alpheus Babcock in 1825, this solid piece of metal was integrated directly into the center of the instrument. Later perfected by manufacturers like Steinway, this rigid plate completely bypassed the structural limitations of wood. This chart highlights the massive jump in mechanical tolerance. The 2,000-pound limit of the wooden frame scaled to a capacity of over 40,000 pounds with the introduction of iron. That equates to roughly 30 tons of continuous tension held within the piano's body. This extreme rigidity altered the behavior of the vibrating strings. Pulling a string this tightly changes its acoustic profile, shifting how the harmonic overtones resonate and sustain compared to a loosely strung wire. This engineering leap split the piano's future into two competing acoustic models, utilized by two radically different masters. Frédéric Chopin built his repertoire around the older, low-tension acoustic model. He famously preferred the Pleyel, a transitional piano built with minimal iron bracing and a heavy reliance on its wooden frame. Chopin actively avoided the new cast iron frames, believing they generated too much sheer volume and stripped away the intimacy he required. This sound wave visualization shows the wooden Pleyel's acoustic behavior. Low-tension strings produce a rapidly decaying purr, creating precise pockets of silence between notes. Chopin relied on this quick decay for his signature legato, ensuring fast passages remained distinct. The lack of extreme resonance also meant he could use the damper pedal to create subtle washes of harmonic color without overwhelming the fundamental pitch. Attempting that same heavy pedaling on a modern high-tension iron grand results in a wash of muddy, clashing frequencies. His poetic sound was the masterful acoustic optimization of a low-tension wooden technology that was quickly being phased out. Franz Liszt was the absolute antithesis of that salon intimacy. Known for an aggressive and physically demanding technique, Liszt had a documented history of snapping strings and fracturing multiple wooden pianos during a single performance. Liszt required the cast iron frame to keep his instrument from disintegrating under the force of his technique. The iron plate was paired with another critical innovation, the Erard double escapement action, which allowed the hammer to reset mid-strike for rapid repetition. This specific action gave the keys incredible responsiveness, allowing the player to mimic the varied, dense attacks of a full symphony orchestra. In turn, the iron structure delivered immense sustain and a piercing brilliance, particularly in the extreme upper registers. That high-end sustain was mandatory. It allowed Liszt's rapid-fire octaves and massive chord stacking to ring out clearly above the mechanical noise. He needed that projection to throw sound all the way to the back of the grand, ornate concert halls he was beginning to fill. His dense, percussive repertoire, especially pieces like the Transcendental Etudes, would be physically impossible to execute on a wooden instrument without it splintering. His music is an acoustic artifact of cast iron. The final product of this engineering evolution sits on stages today, the modern high-tension concert grand. The integration of the cast iron core permanently ended the era of the delicate salon forte piano. The modern piano emerged as an industrial beast, born out of coal, fire, and the high-tension metallurgy of the 1800s. While Chopin defined the piano's emotional and intimate soul through its wooden ancestry, the iron frame provided the sheer acoustic power needed to realize Liszt's orchestral vision. That material shift is entirely embedded in the repertoire. When you listen to a 19th century etude today, you are not just hearing an artist's inspiration, you are experiencing the direct result of a structural engineering crisis being solved by 30 tons of industrial metal. Thank you for watching Notes and Silences.